from a play called Good and Plenty, written by Jeffrey Hatcher. It's set in the 1970s in a high school.
It's a dark comedy. Something that's really unique about this play is that all the actors
are going to play two or more characters and within the same scene. You're actually only going to see that in the first part of this excerpt, but it's going to be interesting, so keep your eyes open for that.
We are mounting a full production of the full-length play on Sunday, May 3rd at 8 p.m. right in this very room, and we'd love to have you in the audience if you'd like to come. But for now, enjoy. Thank you.
All right, everybody, let's get started. Welcome on this, our first day of school. My name is Richard Miller. I teach problems of democracy, and it is a privilege to have you in my class. This is section 2. Now, as you know, you're taking section 1 with Mrs. Dunlop, in which you study the history of the Constitution, right? Well, this is section 2. We're going to conduct a practical, and hopefully we'll get our hands dirty a little bit. Yes, Cindy.
Are you going to pass out a syllabus?
Actually, Cindy, there won't be a syllabus for this class.
There won't?
No, there won't be a syllabus, and there won't be any readings.
All right.
Yes, Cindy.
Are you going to pass out a class outline?
No, Cindy, there won't be a syllabus, and there won't be a class plan. It's a game, you guys. You know, fun. Huh? John Hunt.
Mr. Mill. If there's no plan, how are we going to make the game work?
Excellent question. Guys, I don't know what the game is just yet. I want you to decide that. I mean, yeah, I'm happy to throw out some ideas. We flesh them out together, but as this is a democracy, I think that we should function as a democratic institution. Now, you guys probably don't know this, but I went to Wintersville for high school, actually, and I took problems of democracy, just like you're doing right now. In those days, however, Mrs. Dunlop taught both sections of the course. Her practical was always the same. It was always a mock constitutional convention, where we all played delegates and wrote a constitution, just like they did in 1780. Seven! Excellent, Cindy. 1787 was when the Constitution was written. And it's great to know dates and stuff, but it's more important to understand. Yeah? It's vital to know how power is wielded and how decisions are made. Moreover, how compromises affect ideology and outcome. So, now
What you're saying is we don't need to know dates.
well, what I'm saying is that the only dates you'll need to know are the dates that you choose to know. Okay, guys, enough of that. Let's get started. What is democracy?
Vox populi!
Calm down there, coaches. John Hunt, what's democracy?
Government of the people, by the people, for the people.
Yeah, sure. Zero up. How about, let's see. Roanne Porter? What's democracy, Roanne?
The People's Choice Awards.
I wouldn't have thought of that. Good example. Okay, now, correct me if I'm wrong. The People's Choice Awards. Anybody can vote, but very few people do. Why is that? Let's see. Let's call on, Kim McQuan.
My mother doesn't let me watch television. She says television is Satan's wavelength.
That's terrifying, Kim. Okay, how about Albert Kundrat?
People are too busy with their collections of paper products.
I'm sure some people are, Albert. Someone else. Why does no one vote in the People's Choice Awards? Ron Bridges.
Lack of interest?
Lack of interest. Oh, good. Keep going with that.
It's silly.
Contempt for the process. Good. More.
It has no meaning.
It has no effect on their day-to-day lives. Excellent. Good. Okay, next question. What is the only kind of voting upon which we insist in the American system? Mr. Hager?
Juries.
Excellent. Yes.
High school credit for what I learned in life.
Yes, quite right, I know. Juries. When one is called for jury duty, one is required to vote. A simple majority will not do. Who can tell me why that is? Mr. Bridges?
Because you're determining a person's fate. Whether that person goes to jail, paid fine, or gets the death penalty. It's important.
Excellent. Unlike voting for president or governor, congressman,
I
senator.
didn't say that.
I know. I'm extrapolating.
Well, we have to know what extrapolating means.
when voting numbers spike? Who hasn't talked today? Margie Skravonsky? Is that how you say it?
Well, Watergate does not bother me. Does your conscience bother you?
Well, okay. Apathy is a totally valid point of view, Margie. But someone else, who can answer when voting numbers go up? How about Andy Kettlewell? Christmas? Well, Andy, I can't think of any elections that actually happen around Christmas time. How about Randy Kettlewell? You have an idea? Christmas! No, guys. Ron?
When times are hard.
Yes! Thank you, Ron. When problems are brought right to people's front doors. Okay? Now that's what's so interesting about what Tyrell said about juries, because that's when voting, the law, the Constitution are actually life and death decisions. Guys, that's why I don't want to do a mock constitutional convention with airy talk about we the people, writing some piece of paper cobbled together by a bunch of guys in silk stockings and powdered wigs.
Mr. Miller, as far as this game is concerned, rewriting the Constitution would be just fine by me.
I'm sure it would, Cindy, but let's be honest. You're never going to write the Constitution, are you? You might run for Senate, you might run for City Council or School Board. I could see you running.
So it's safe to assume that the game will be one of those three options.
No, Cindy, I think those are what it is.
So there will most definitely not be the
No,
option.
guys, Cindy, please. Okay, guys, let's pick this up, same time, same place, tomorrow. Well, it had not gone quite as I had hoped. I started to gather my things and picked up the box of candy I had bought on my way to work. This was my lunch and dinner in these days. Started to head home when suddenly,
Mr. Miller, please report to the administrative office.
at the ripe age of 30, I was called into the principal's office. Yes?
Sit down.
Is something the matter?
Yes, there is, Richard. Do you have your class plan with you?
Which class would that be?
Problems of democracy.
Well then, it's not so much a plan as some notes.
Why is there not a plan?
Now, whenever principals start using syntax like, why is there not a plan, like they pulled it out of the 10 Commandments, you know there's trouble. It means that what Ed wants to say to me is, where the fuck is your fucking plan? Why is there not a plan?
Yes, why?
Well, why there is not a plan is because I wanted the plan to be by the students chosen.
Richard, we're under a lot of pressure these days. Do you know how much we spend on PR, trying to send out newsletters and press releases to convince parents that public education isn't anything like the way they remembered from when they were in school? We push the image of the selfless, hard-working, underpaid educator. And they can't get out of their minds the pathetic, sadistic morons they saw every day for 12 years. When I was in high school, in this same high school, in this same building, we had two separate English teachers who would put bourbon in their coffee every morning. We had two separate physical ed teachers who would make passes at students of two different sexes in two different showers. And we had a wrestling coach who would punish his students by shoving them in a locker and leaving them there over the weekend. And those teachers are still here! I can't fire them unless I catch them smoking!
Well, okay, do you have class plans from all the other teachers?
No.
Then why me in particular?
I thought we were meeting in my room.
Mrs. Dunlop.
Has he given it to you?
Given what?
I told him in July that I wanted to see his class plans, and he did not present them for my approval. Do you deny that?
No,
Well,
but...
there, he meant it. Look at his face. His neighbor's window. Character will out, young man. This is a terribly poor way to commence a teaching career.
Mrs. Dunlop, I'm quite sure there's nothing in the rule books that states I must submit my class plans to you for approval.
Mrs. Dunlop.
Mr. Renzelli, this school is not a smorgasbord. It's not a little of this, a little of that. I like cheesecake, but I don't like nuts. By teaching the history of Constitution, and Mr. Miller's director of practice that runs parallel, I should expect our classes to dovetail properly. In addition to which, logic suggests that my class take the lead while Mr. Miller's class follows.
What do you want?
I want Mr. Miller to devise a lab practical that places our students at a mock constitutional convention.
Oh, not this again.
I will teach what happened and Mr. Miller will oversee the game. Now I have with me the game that we used since I taught that section. It is somewhat yellow, but I had it plasticized.
a big favor. She's practically done all the work for us.
I'm both surprised and not surprised at how well I remember this treatment of the Constitutional Convention. So, basically, I'm to be your glorified teaching assistant. And this thing is 26 years old. It incorporates none of the relevant research, the insights provided since then. It's irrelevant.
Well, now the Constitution was a long time ago. I bet you most of the good stuff got in.
No, and this is bogus.
Our language! Are you going to allow me to insult a junior faculty member that lets the students choose the curriculum? I mean, who calls our Constitution a loose affair cobbled together by a bunch of men in silk stockings and powdered wigs?
Wait, how did you know?
Mr. Renzelli, it is time for a decision. I demand that either Mr. Miller provide us with a plan at once, or he directs the game I have chosen.
Well, do you? Do you have such a set plan?
Think, brain, think. And then I had it. Mrs. Dunlop, Mr. Renzelli, I've devised a game.
What?
Okay, we want a game that's based on the democratic principles as they've been handed down to us, yeah? But we also want a game that connects with current events. So what's happening out there? In the papers, on TV? Crime in the streets. The game is this. While Mrs. Dunlop's students study the laws, the rights, the guarantees found within the Constitution, I will conduct a practical in which those same students portray the people who enact, enforce, and apply those laws, as well as those who break them. Students will be assigned roles: judge, juror, prosecutor, defense, police, and perpetrator even. Oh, the job of the perpetrators will be to commit a crime. The job of all the rest, to catch them, and once caught, try them by a jury of their peers.
Well, this is
I like it.
Mr. Renzelli.
No, I do. It's hip.
Okay, I'll concoct a crime. I will assign the roles. I'll deliver all their materials, and then I'll turn them loose.
Well, what would the crime be? Murder? Robbery?
Drugs.
You're condoning drug use.
Good and plenty candies. Little pink and white pills. They can stand for anything. Uppers, downers, speed.
Oh, loots! Could they be loots?
Yes, they can.
Oh, and poppers! Poppers would be so good!
Within the game, the point is that good and plenties are a drug of choice.
This is neat! I do!
Mr. Renzelli,
What?
do you realize what Mr. Miller is doing?
Of course I do. What's he doing?
Mr. Miller is getting you to approve of a game that will wreak havoc on the whole school. What will the superintendent say? The board? The families?
Oh, I hadn't.
Thought about that? No, of course not. You just want to be with it. You need to be hip.
Better than getting a hip replacement.
If just one thing were to go wrong with Mr. Miller's game, the full force of the school board would come crashing down on us.
Well, don't you have anything to say to this?
No,
Nothing?
I said nothing.
Naturally, he says nothing.
Nothing because I had faith that, as Mrs. Dunlop was so fond of saying, character will out.
He knows what a risky scheme his game is.
I was putting everything on a hunch.
He knows it was a bad idea from the start.
No, a prediction based on character and past performance.
Mr. Renzelli, the decision is yours to make.
Everything was right on.
All I can say.
Here it comes.
All I can say.
Go, babe.
It's nothing George Gescheiter would have done.
And the gauntlet is thrown. The name George Gescheiter provokes a reaction in Ed Renzelli. It's like saying Kennedy to Johnson, Roosevelt to Truman, Sean Connery to Roger Moore. A sterling, near godlike predecessor against whom his successor is compared, never favored.
It's nothing George Gescheiter would have done.
Slowly he turned.
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Renzelli.
You have my permission to proceed with the game.
What?
Good and plenty.
Mr. Renzelli.
A game which will underline the ways in which Wintersville students wrestle with both society's laws and society's ills in a highly structured, minutely observed, and tightly regulated experiment that brings the genius of democracy into the modern-day America that our students will someday lead. No, Mrs. Dunlop, this is not something that George Gescheiter would have done. That is exactly why we're doing it.
Character will out.
One provision, Mr. Miller.
Sir.
You said you wanted the students to choose the game on their own. They'll have to vote. Good and plenty or how to write a constitution. And now awaits you both, I hope, a good night's sleep.
Mrs. Dunlop, now, I don't like having to submit my class plans to you for approval, but I would really welcome your insights. I want this practical I teach to have a sort of...
Relevance?
Yes, exactly. Wow.
That was the word in 1968. In 1972, it was significance. What is it for you? We don't need to teach our students relevant significance about their lives and their world. They'll get enough of that from their lives and their world. We must teach them the ideals that our forefathers espoused. They'll learn soon enough how hard it is to live up to them.
Pardon me, I never realized you were such an advocate for protecting the innocence of young minds.
Corruption waits just outside the door, Mr. Miller. We don't need to open it.